Okay. So yeah, hey everyone. This is going to be the onboarding slash realignment for the Orangutan Encyclopedia project. If you're invited to this meeting, it means you are either recently assigned this project or you've been on this project already. And we're about to announce some big changes. So this meeting is important for both the newcomers and the people who already established on the project. We're going to have some major changes to the taxonomy, and we're also going so like the tasking workflow, and we're also going to have some changes to just the way that like the instructions and the general guidance of the project. So just as a heads up, there is just one last eng issue that we are ironing out. So we're going to give like a sort of pseudo task workflow in here, and we'll explain to you any workarounds that you might have to incorporate for the next day as we fix a particular portion of the project. But yeah, before we get into any of that, I just wanted to address the sorts, some higher level sorts of things to expect in terms of the number of tasks you can do, the types of tasks you can do, and how this will change for some people. So first thing going forward is that for those of you that are used to the project, you might have noticed that you always have initial files and initial output files that you can use to sort of build off of to create a high quality task going forward. Now we'll have tasks that are done from scratch in addition to that. Uh, and then, so these tasks, you'll have to source the input files yourself. I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into that as we proceed with the workflow. But it'll be sort of a hybrid of those two approaches. We're also going to have more tasks in certain domains that we were low on tasks for the last couple of weeks. So, such as those of you that are in legal or in chemistry or physics, where we haven't had a very large supply of tasks, you can expect to have more tasks going forward shortly after this meeting. And yeah, just to clarify how limits on tasks that the amount of tasks that you can do. If we do not have a quality read on you, you will be limited to 2 tasks every few days. Just as a heads up. And then once we are able to get a review on you, depending on if you had a good understanding of the instructions or not, you'll be able to produce more tasks going forward, depending on just how good your initial tasks were. And if there were issues, then there'll be opportunities for you to get realigned so long as your scores weren't in the realms of low effort, basically, which is just a quality score on average, which is below 2 or multiple, or greater than 2 reads where your score was below 2.5. If you meet those criteria, then unfortunately you will have to be disabled from the project. All right, so just wanted to get that out of the way. I think we can now start with the workflow. So let me share my screen. So, right. Okay, so you're going to be presented with this is not exactly, this is very similar to what you can expect the task to look like. So at the top, you're going to have information like telling you welcome to the project. You'll be able to access, so this video is going to be replaced right now. It's an old onboarding video, but after this meeting, it's going to be replaced with a recording of this meeting. So you can always go back and watch this video to have an understanding of how to complete tasks on the project if you prefer the video to the instructions. Despite attending this, we are about to, just a heads up, we are about to publish both new instructions and new courses that you will have to go through. So make sure to complete that course to be able to continue tasking, and make sure to most importantly, read the instructions very carefully because they will be even more detailed than this meeting. So the goal of this project overall is to train AI is to train agents in completing professional tasks, like completing professional workflows that involve computer use. So by computer use, that means interacting with a computer to be able to complete a certain thing, like produce PowerPoints, produce PDFs, create images in an application like Blender. It really depends on the domain. And this project is split into 12 domains. So let me just give me 1 second. Let me get that out right now. So yeah, this project is split into 12 professional domains. And sorry, 1 second. Let's get out the. The computer's lagging a little bit. Right. Okay, yeah. So this project is split into 12 different domains. So we have finance and accounting, software and data, design, creative, engineering, and all of the others listed here. So if you're assigned this project, you probably have a high level of skill in at least one of these domains. You will only be able to complete tasks in the domains that Outlier is aware that you have a skill in them. So just as a heads up, if you ever notice that someone isn't EQ and then you are, there's a good chance that it might be that we don't have tasks at your specific review level for your domain. But you can always reach out on the Outlier channel and ask a member of the team, and they'll be able to inform you if that is the case or if it is a quality issue or anything else like that. So yeah, as I said, they're going to be tasks from scratch, and they're going to be tasks with pre-filled prompt plus input files. So these are the two categories of tasks. For the latter, you're going to have less time to complete tasks because you already have a solid starting point. So the general idea is that you'll still need to, so if it's a task from scratch, you're going to need to write the prompt from scratch. You're going to need to get the artifacts that are going to be used as supporting files that the agent is going to use to complete the prompt. So let's say if it's a finance task, it could be CSVs CSVs or like reports, like financial report, PDF financial reports, or even some charts and images that you can have as inputs that it will use to produce the output artifacts or output files that we'll talk about in a bit more. And then, as I mentioned, this is a computer use project. So it's really important that there is adequate GUI integration in every single prompt that you're creating. So it needs to be written in such a way that a model can't just like write a script or a coding script to be able to produce these files. We'll dive into what that means a little bit more and some additional guidance on that. But you should always have that at the back of your mind as you're either creating prompts or fixing prompts that you were provided with, because the prompts you're provided with aren't going to be perfect. So pivoting back to what the task looks like, you're going to have an initial upload section here. So you're going to have the if you do have starting files. So this field is going to be empty if it's a task that is not pre-filled. So that's sort of how you would know if it's a task you're doing from scratch or not. You'll notice that there are no starting files here and no locally downloadable URLs here either. So if there are, you'll see a list of the file names, and then you'll see a list of the locally of their URL. So if you just click on the URL, you'll be able to download that file to your local machine. That's the initial file for you to analyze. In addition to that, you're probably wondering, how do I know which file name corresponds to which URL? It's in the same order. So if there are about 3 initial files, then the first initial file corresponds to the first URL. The second initial file corresponds to the second initial URL. So that's the guidance there. And even if you have initial files, so this is a new thing for those of you that have been on the project. Prior to this, you were limited to the initial files you were provided. So if initial files were unsatisfactory, you would mark the task as unfeasible. That is no longer the case. If initial files are unsatisfactory for you to create a good prompt, you can replace them. You can add new initial files here. So in this section, similar to how you upload the ground truth files in the latest section, you can add in new supplementary initial files or completely replace the initial files. You're not limited to using the initial files you were provided in a task if that's subpar. And with a prompt, it's the same thing. You can write the prompt from scratch. If the prompt has no use at all and is not good quality, you can rewrite that from scratch as well. So that's just a heads up. As a result of that, new thing is we're no longer expecting to have any tasks that are unfeasible, because any task that would be unfeasible can basically be done from scratch. So yeah, that's that first section. And then you'd move on to write the prompt. If it's one of those tasks where you have like an initial starting point, you would see a seed prompt here, and it would also be populated here. You can tweak that seed prompt, replace it, fix it. If it's a task from scratch, it'll be empty, and you'll have to write a completely new seed prompt based on the initial output files that you sourced. So this is an example. Yeah, please go over the instructions to sort of get a better understanding of the kinds of prompts that are expected on the project. And also the course will explain that in detail as well. You also, if it's a task that you're not doing from scratch, you also have a section here that says initial output gold files. So in this section, similar to how you have the initial input files, you'll have the initial output files here, and you can download them in the exact same way. Sometimes we have a bug in the task where these URLs can all get formatted as one. So when you just click on the link, it doesn't work. If that's the case, you can just manually copy it up until copy all the link between the quotes for that individual thing, paste it into your URL, and you should be able to download the file that way. So paste it into your web browser. That's the most guaranteed way that there isn't an error with the formatting of the link that tells you that it's broken. This is only applicable for if you had an initial prompt. If you had an initial prompt, you'll be asked if you needed to make changes, and then you can just detail the changes that you're going to make. And then, yes, this is an asset upload section. So in this section, you are going to make ground truth files for this. So as I said earlier, the goal is to evaluate an agent's ability to produce good quality file outputs, which are its response to the professional task that you're requesting of it. In order to do that, we need to properly have a way to evaluate. So your main thing that you're going to, and this is the most important aspect, the main thing that you're going to be doing is producing these ground truth files, which is supposed to be the source of truth for what a perfect answer to the prompt that you either crafted or tweaked is going to be. So this is where you should spend the most amount of time when you're on a task, making sure that that ground truth file is absolutely perfect. If you're reviewing a pre-existing one and or tweaking it to the additional things that you made to the prompt, make sure that it's ideal. Or if you're making one from scratch, make sure that there are no typos, there are no errors. You got all of the information correct and everything is presented well as well. This is the section where you're going to be able to upload those attachments. So you don't do anything the first time. So for the first pass, you just skip over this section and you're going to come back to it later.
Escape or delete the files.
Sorry, I didn't catch that.
In the assets section, do we need just escape or delete the uploaded file?
There is not going to be any file in this section initially. So you're going to be skipping past it initially and you're going to come back to it because you need to actually have created the ground truth file before you can upload anything here. So you can't upload yet. It's just that for certain reasons, we need to have this section a little bit earlier than when it's actually used, if that makes any sense. So we're going to come back to this section. It's just that the first time you're doing a task, you skipped it, and we're going to come back. And there is a computer use step. Just give me a second. This view isn't the best at showing that. Let me pull out another tab.
What I had uploaded files in my previous tasks,
Maybe we can take additional questions later, but if you do have pressing questions, you can also ask them in the chat. One second. Okay. Well, I guess. Well, actually, I have it loaded up right now. Okay. Just we'll give this a little bit of a moment to load. So I guess I'll just show the instructions and explain that while that's loading, while the example of that is loading. So basically, there's going to be the asset upload section. You skip that initially. There is also going to be a rubric section. We're going to talk about that in a bit more detail. That will appear after the asset upload section. That is another section that you will skip initially, and then we will revisit after you have created the file. The reason why you're skipping these two sections is because tasks in this project are going to be completed in a virtual machine. So that's a machine within the task, a computer within the task that is, this place where it's asking to sign into Outlier. This is typically going to be a desktop. So it would be like a desktop using the Ubuntu operating system. And you would basically need to complete the task in there. So you'll
You
be
can just do tab Shagun. I think this is because you're doing it in the dashboard.
Yeah, I think if I view the task in on Outlier, I can. But yeah, I just didn't want to deal with linters. But yeah, we can talk about this in a moment. I guess while I'm navigating to that, Judah, would we actually be able to talk about the rubrics?
Sure. Let me show. Yeah, you guys have an application to help you write the rubrics. The way that we write the rubrics is really important for our verification process. And so I think Shagun will provide some more contributor guidelines on how to write them. But I think as you mentioned before, we want to take into account both sort of the analytical correctness of the solution, but we also want to take seriously the formatting, styling, visual layout of what we expected of a professional artifact that would be delivered. And authoring the rubrics is kind of a way that you guys are able to make sure that the grading aligns with your view. So let me kind of show you. We have this application basically where you can input the prompt of the task and the ground truth artifacts. With the URLs that you have along with the file names. And then we have an agent that will it's also given similar guidelines to you all that will help you try to generate some initial artifacts. For right now, it's annoying, just you can start just kind of copy pasting these into the rubric builder. You can make edits as well if you think that they're necessary. But there's some must pass criteria that are gated where if these fail, then we should go 0 on the task. And there's ones that are about more analytical correctness. I don't know, the summary and the feature brief matches the ground truth file. But importantly, these rubrics, the criteria are written in such a way where like the agent judge is given access to the ground truth artifact you're creating. So the ground truth artifact you guys create is like the answer key, and these criteria are more like dimensions along which we're going to score the output. Like, you know, if we're going to get partial scoring, like where, and it also it helps give interpretability, like why is the score lower? And so also I think the visual stuff is important because oftentimes you can sometimes see the agent writes code to like produce some PDF, but the PDF looks really bad, even though some of the content is okay. And we want to be like, because of the computer project, we want to make sure that we are properly penalizing places where the output artifact is really going to fail. So I think like one sort of gut test as you're kind of iterating on these rubrics is to think about like, would I fail this task, right? And by fail, I mean like, would I give below 0.8 or like an 80%? I think is where maybe we'll put that threshold. And once you run model rollout these rubrics and you sort of see how they're scoring, like example agent outputs, you can sort of see if these rubric criteria need to be modified or edited, if weights need to be a little bit different to make sure that the score that we're producing for particular like, agent production or whatever matches kind of like what you'd imagine. So we'll have this, and then you can kind of copy this into the rubric builder. This will like move into the computer step, and then you can generate model agent rollouts that will have an agent attempt the task, and you can sort of see what kind of result artifacts they produced and compare them with your ground truth files, and you can it'll hopefully help you like write these rubrics in such a way that we're like being able to really classify like, and differentiate good responses from bad responses. So this outputs like the criteria and like some types and weights and stuff like that, and then you port it over to the rubric builder. So, is there any other context you think I should add here, or are you going to go into things?
No, I'll go into thanks for that, Judah. Yeah, so basically we are working to be able to integrate this into the criteria builder where it automatically populate. But for now, if you can just copy and paste, you'll have an application in the task where it'll automatically generate these rubrics, and then you can copy and paste manually yourself for the time being. But yeah, we will integrate that it's a bit more seamless and you don't have to have that interaction. I guess I can share my screen now. It has loaded up. All right, great. So yeah, so this is the asset upload section. We skip past that. There's going to be, right now it's not in this task because we haven't like uploaded that, but that will happen shortly after this meeting. But there'll be the external app step, and eventually we're going to have it automatically populate this rubric criteria builder right here. This is an example of what a rubric would look like. And then that gets fed into the virtual machine. So every virtual machine has, this is where you're going to complete the task. So you're going to have all of the applications necessary for whatever your domain is. They may not be the most like popular versions, but for any domain, there are adequate applications to be able to complete tasks. And you should be able to execute the task initializer. So you have to be able to press this button here, execute task initializer. And what this basically does is it will upload the initial files that we spoke about earlier to the virtual machine. And before you actually press this execute task initializer button, you need to make sure that you have put in the correct links and file names and paths and everything into this config. I know that this looks like a lot of code, but it actually is a lot simpler than it seems. And the instructions actually break this down on how this works. So just one moment, let me scroll down there. So yeah, I believe this is the verifier section, and then looking for the task initializer sample. Okay, well, I think this is a bit more on the verifier, but for the sake of time, I can just explain it right now. So we have, it's basically all that you really need to care about is the URLs and the path here. So every task initializer has a specific structure. It's going to come pre-filled matching this structure, and we'll make sure that the instructions clearly show you a template so that you can clearly see that if for some reason your task initializer isn't working, it's probably because the template of the JSON is wrong. So you need to care about these two variables here. So the URL is the link to your initial file, which you uploaded earlier, and the path is basically where it's going to appear when it gets uploaded to this virtual machine. So let's say this person, for this task, I believe this task, they didn't upload initial files. They were provided them. So there's a locally downloadable starting file, optical scattering project.zip, right? So, and then there's a locally downloadable file. So what you would do if you are dealing with a file that wasn't uploaded, so you were provided the file, you would just copy the URL right here, and then scroll back down to the task initializer, and paste it in right here. So you paste it in right here, and then the path, which is basically the file location, is going to be always/home/docker/desktop, and then the name of whatever the file is, which you can also get from up there. So this person put it in right there. Sometimes you might notice a task has this weird thing of like expires equals to, and the URL seems super long. That is just an internal issue that we have. Please, it's the quick fix for that is just to recopy the URL and replace it and then rerun it. You would never want to submit a task where you see any URL looking like this. So yeah, that's just a heads up. Also, I know that in the past, we did include this feature where output files were automatically uploaded to so like the initial output files that you may be provided that you can work on fixing were uploaded automatically to the virtual machine. Unfortunately, we are getting rid of that, and we're removing these from the task initializer. We would want to keep that clean just because with a later step, it can cause some issues, and we would want to avoid that. So if you see any file that's underscore output, you can just come here and delete the entire portion of the list. So you remove the comma and you remove the curly braces, everything within it for that particular file. You just get rid of that so that it's only the initial files that you have within this task initializer. So once all of that's set up, I'm not going to edit this file, but you just press execute task initializer, and you can see that all the files load up, and it should say task initialized successfully. I mean, right now we have the output files, but that's fine for the sake of this meeting. We're just not going to edit that. So you're probably wondering okay, if I don't have the initial output files automatically uploaded for me, how am I going to transfer them in? So the way that you would do that is you just you would have to sort of use any third-party application. So it could be LimeWire, file transfer, etc. And you would basically just go to your browser. I prefer to use LimeWire, but anything else works. You just open the web browser here and go to that particular website. And if it's LimeWire that you're using, you can log into LimeWire on your local machine, upload the file in LimeWire, sign into LimeWire here, and then download it on the VM. So whichever way that you get the file into the VM doesn't really matter. You can use any application. You can use Google Drive if you're comfortable with that. But just so long as you're able to transfer it from your personal device to this device, either way works. But unfortunately, we can't use the task initializer to do that because we don't want to run into unexpected issues. And then the verifier, it's the same logic. Basically, a very similar structure. So the verifier is, so its task initializer was setting up so that you can edit and create your ground truth file. You obviously have to retransfer your ground truth file into back to your local machine after you've created it, like your perfect file, whether it's an edit of the original one or whether it was one that you created from scratch. You'd have to retransfer it back to your local machine through LimeWire or any of those other ways that you got it onto the machine in the first place. And then that's when you would go back up to the asset upload section and upload it as an attachment right here. And it would appear here. Once you've uploaded it as an attachment, you can click this button right here, copy file URL, and then you just copy the file URL. You come down to the verifier section. So this verifier section is basically the part that evaluates like the model's response. So you just copy it, but this is basically just setting up for a later stage. This isn't really the methodology for evaluating if you have a good ground truth file, but you copy it, you have to make sure it's perfectly formatted and paste it into the appropriate section. Now, this is actually an old task, so I'm going to pivot to the instructions to show what the real structure that we have is going to look like, because this is one of the changes to the project. So for those of you that were on the project before, we only had the result section, which would be like a cloud file, and then you paste in the URL, and the test is basically your file name, right? But now things have changed, and we have an expected and a result section. So they look very similar. They have the same structure. The function is always going to be this agent judge multi. Expected is going to be so expected is basically the data where you put in your ground truth file. So when you go to your asset URL and you copy that link, you'd be pasting it into the path of the expected. So you can see how this looks like a sort of URL link. You would paste it into there, and the type is always going to be cloud file, and it's going to be another list of all of these properties in curly braces. And if you need more, you can just add like another curly brace list. So let's say if the initial template that was pre-populated in your file only had 2, then you can always add more if you need more for the number of for however many output files you have for your task. But this is just a general structure, and you can copy and paste this in and tweak this to help you write a good verifier. Now onto the result section. The result section is going to basically be the same as the expected section. The only difference is that the dest is still going to be the file name, so exact same thing. And then the path, the only is going to be the main difference. So now the path is going to be like the expected sort of file location it would be if it was on a desktop on the local machine, on the virtual machine. So it'll be /home/docker/desktop and whatever the name of your file is going to be. And then the type is also going to be different. It's going to be VM file instead of cloud file. So VM for virtual machine. And that's basically the structure that it's going to be. There's also going to be a rubric section at the bottom, which is just basically whatever your rubric was. And typically, you shouldn't ever have to update this, like modify this rubric section, because it'll be pre-populated from the criteria builder. But just as a heads up, you might have to manually plug in some things that just for like the next day or so, as we make sure that everything is sorted out on that front. It would just be that you would be provided with a JSON, and you just paste that JSON in basically, and make sure that it matches this structure. As you can see in the instructions, if you're running into any issues here, as you can see, as Judah explained earlier, it has like a weight. The title matches the the title matches like what the rubric item is, and the annotations and everything should be pre-populated for you. Yeah, so that's pretty much it on how the verifier works. So when you have a task in place, you make sure that you have your final ground truth files still located, named properly in the desktop. You upload the assets, copy the assets over, put them in the expected section, you execute the verifier. If you formatted everything correctly, it should always score 1, because you're basically comparing the file against itself. So it scoring 1 does not mean that your task is good. It scoring 1 simply means that you just formatted your verifier and task initializer correctly. So that's just a heads up. This isn't some sort of thing that you think, oh, my evaluation score was 1, so my ground truth file was perfect. You still need to make sure that manually that your ground truth file is very high quality. And that brings us to the next section, which is the task runner. And this section is really important. What this basically is this is tying back to the goal of the project. You want to make prompts that are challenging for the model. You want to make prompts that would basically stump the model. The model isn't able to score perfectly on it. And in this task runner step, when you press this run button, we're not going to run it for the sake of time, but when you press this run button, it will basically have an agent. Well, it'll have 3 instances, like three instances of an agent complete your prompt with your initial artifacts and create its own ground truth artifacts. And then it will use your rubric and your ground truth file as a source of truth and grade the agent's response based on what your rubric and your ground truth files says is correct. So you'll then get an answer for that, and it'll get a score between 0 and 100%. And we want this score to, ideally, you want the average of your 3 scores to be at most 65%. So that's the maximum. Of the 3 instances, you want the average of all their scores to be 65% at most. And then you don't want any of them scoring greater than 80%. That is another thing that you would want to avoid. If you notice, like in this task, it's scoring really high, it's getting 99%. That means, that means that it can mean 2 things. It can mean that the rubric that was automatically generated, like by an LLM for you, is not good enough, and you need to go back and see. You'll be able to click in here and sort of view. You'd be able to click in here and sort of view the. I mean, this task I think it expired, but you'd be able to view the outputs of the agent and sort of see. Okay, this task is getting 100%, but the answers the agent provided are wrong, or this task is getting 100%, and the flowcharts are like barely legible and overlapping, and it just doesn't look nice and doesn't look professional. This shouldn't be getting 100%. So that's where you can either tweak the weights of the rubrics, add new rubrics, remove certain rubrics based on what's in the project guidelines until the rubric is robust enough to always accurately score. So you don't want to just index it on. You're trying to make the rubric more robust and good in general. You're not just trying to make it make sure that that particular agent's response gets a low score. So you should have that in mind of not just making rubrics for one response, but making rubrics that are more robust and using the agent's response to sort of see potential pitfalls in the rubric. And then in addition to that, another thing that this task runner step can be used for is so the most important way is for you to manually do your own due diligence to make sure your ground truth files are correct. But you can also use this agent run, like this task runner step, to be able to see, oh, all 3 of the files came to this particular answer. Is it really that all three of the agents are wrong? Or is it more that maybe my ground truth file actually has the wrong answer? And then you should go and double check whether it's something that was searched up online or something with the initial artifact. Just double check that your ground truth file is actually the one that's correct, and it's not that the agents are all correct. So you can use this in 2 ways to be able to improve your rubrics and also double check that your ground truth files are also correct. There is a very high chance. There is also going to be situations where the score is high, and that's not because of the rubrics or the ground truth files or anything. It's just because your prompt is too easy. So if your prompt is too easy, that means you just need to go back and make your prompt more complex for the model, basically, and then redo the rubrics, rerun it, update the GTF, and try this again. Ideally, that shouldn't happen too often, but it is something that will definitely happen. So just be aware of that, and that's all the more reason to make sure that you're giving your best, like you're putting in your most effort to make your prompt as complex as possible initially, so that you don't run into a situation where you just are close to finishing a task and you realize that all what you did was way too easy. All right, and so that's the general workflow. I want to pivot back to the rubric section because I think we sort of glossed over rubric, and then we'll go also talk a little about those things in the prompts too. But yeah, so just there is in the guidelines. Please read over this. This is and we will share this shortly. We're just making some final tweaks to it. We'll publish this and let you know once the updated guidelines have been published. But please read over this rubric section. Even though the rubrics are going to be LLM generated, it's really important for you to be able to understand how to write good rubrics. So that has to do with atomicity, self-containment, understanding the categories of rubrics. So we have like visual accuracy and and certain like must-pass file format gates within this project. Those are the three primary categories. There have been a lot of changes to the rules. All accuracy rubric items are going to be anchored on the ground truth file, or as it's referred to in the guidelines, the expected file. For particular in the rubric. And yeah, just make sure to go over this section. We're going to make a post on Outlier shortly after this meeting once that's ready for you to have an understanding of what entails a good rubric. And then going back to the prompt section, just wanted to talk a little bit more about GUI integration. So there are rules about how many initial files, like every task should have at least 3 initial files and all of that, and rules about the sorts of things that are acceptable and not. So make sure to go over that. So make sure they're CC compliant in English, sufficiently large, etc. All of those rules are here and will also be in the course. But I think it's really important to talk about GUI interaction. So you're probably, even though most of these tasks are things that you would do with a GUI. So let's say if you're making edits to a spreadsheet, it's something that you're doing in the graphics user interface and just like typing and clicking around. But that's not how it would work for a model. A model will try, the model basically is always going to try to do something with code if it can. It's always going to first go try to use code, and if and only if it's impossible, will it then start using the graphics user interface like a human would. So you have to sort of come up with ways that the only way for it to know what the correct answer is by it there's no other way than for it to literally interact or to visually inspect something. So for instance, one way is we have a lot of examples here that you can use and add add to your prompts. But basically, certain things like making sure that the text isn't overlapping in a specific way, or maybe saying, oh, translate this, or like add this text and then shrink this text such that the chart such that all of the text still fits within the chart. It still fits within this particular box in the chart or something like that. So it needs to then go and it'll type it in and then visually inspect to see, okay, does it still meet that condition after I've added this text or translated it to a different language? Another example is like adding in browsing source of requests, like saying that it needs to go to a stable archived historical website and perform some like browsing and get some information from a specific web page that it needs to click around in multiple places and interact with drop downs and that sort of thing to be able to access that information, and not something that it can easily just scrape. And then say like, maybe get the sentence at the bottom of the report or something, and have to visually inspect the PDF to know what that thing is at the bottom of the report. And so multiple layers there. Another thing is also having a reference document. Let's say if you have a reference, like a template of a slideshow, and then say, rather than saying, oh, I want this to be font size 14 and font size, and the color to be blue. Those are overly prescriptive, and we want to avoid those as much as possible. You'd want something like, oh, make sure that the layout of the slideshow matches the matches the template or something. So we'll have to visually inspect that template and sort of recreate that. So those are just some examples. There are a lot more examples here that we won't go over for the sake of time, but the general idea is to come up with creative ways, like in your head, if it's something that they need to, that it's literally impossible to do without visually looking. You can't just write some code that will analyze the input files and then know what to do. So that's why you wouldn't want just like outputs of CSVs and Excel sheets or just like simple reports. It doesn't necessarily have to be visual inspection of the inputs. It can also be involved in the outputs. But I think the general concept is just being creative with that, and make sure to read over this section really carefully because it's really important for the project. Okay, I think that is primarily it. So I guess next